The grand ballroom was alive with music, laughter, and sparkling lights, but not everyone felt the joy. Clara's smile was flawless, painted on like the expensive lipstick she wore, but her eyes burned with a secret fire. Tonight, everything would go her way. Every slight, every whispered insult, every past humiliation she had endured would be paid back, spectacularly, and she had the perfect instrument for her vengeance. Mariah, her fiancé's pregnant ex. No one knew why Mariah was there, except for the trembling circle of wedding planners and waiters who had been instructed not to say a word. Clara's fiancé, Adrian, stood at the altar, blissfully unaware of the storm about to strike. His hand clutched hers, a ring gleaming in the light, a symbol of a love he thought unshakable. Then the music stopped. Clara's eyes flicked to the side, and there she was, Mariah, standing awkwardly at the edge of the stage, a soft hum escaping her lips as she clutched a folder of sheet music. The room went quiet, the chatter dying like a candle in the wind. Every guest turned, sensing the tension without understanding it. Ladies and gentlemen, Clara's voice rang clear, dripping with a polite venom. I asked Mariah to grace us with a song tonight. I thought it would be poetic. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some exchanged confused glances. Others recognized Mariah immediately. The woman Adrian had once loved, the one whose smile could melt the coldest hearts. Now, heavily pregnant and uncertain, she looked out of place in the glimmering sea of guests. Mariah swallowed, her hands trembling slightly. She looked at Adrian, whose confusion mirrored the audience's. Then she looked at Clara, and in that gaze, Mariah saw a predator wearing silk and diamonds. Clara, why? Adrian's voice faltered, his smile vanishing as he tried to intervene. Shoo! Clara whispered, a serpent coiling around her words. This is exactly why she's here. Sit back and enjoy. The pianist struck the first note, a soft, trembling sound. Mariah's voice followed, hesitant at first, then building with an unexpected strength. The song was heartbreak. It was sorrow. It was a story everyone in the room understood, but few dared to speak. Betrayal, lost love, and the silent pain of being cast aside. And then in a subtle, breathtaking twist, Mariah's lyrics shifted. It wasn't a song about Adrian. Not really. It was about resilience, about standing tall when the world tried to humiliate you, about claiming dignity when others sought to crush you. Every note hit like a dagger in Clara's carefully constructed armor. The crowd went silent. Some felt chills. Some were holding their breath, unsure if it was because of the motion or the tension. Clara's perfect posture faltered. Her jaw tightened. She hadn't anticipated this. Mariah's voice grew stronger, richer, more confident. The baby inside her kicked, as if sensing the power flowing from her mother's heart to the music. And suddenly, the humiliation Clara had planned, intended to shame, began to flip. The room no longer saw Mariah as the other woman, or a reminder of Adrian's past. They saw a warrior, a mother, a woman who had endured and survived, who refused to be broken. Clara's smile wavered. Her fingers dug into the bouquet she held, white flowers trembling in her grip. She had expected tears, but hers were not tears of victory. They were the first drops of panic. Adrian's eyes had changed too. Shock, confusion, awe, a whirlwind of emotion crossed his face. He couldn't take his eyes off Mariah. He realized with a jolt that the woman in front of him was not the one he had left behind. She had transformed, radiating strength, defiance, and grace. The song reached its final note. A single, perfect pause lingered in the air. Then Mariah looked directly at Clara. No words were spoken, but the silence screamed louder than any insult could. Clara felt in her bones. Her plan had failed spectacularly. The humiliation she had carefully crafted had turned against her, and the world could see it. For the first time in years, Clara felt powerless. The control she had clung to, the venom she had nurtured, slipped like sand through her fingers. Then, before anyone could move, the chandelier above the dance floor shook violently. A sudden crack echoed through the hall. Guests screamed. Glass glittered across the marble floor like deadly rain. Clara froze. Adrian lunged for her, his protective instincts kicking in. Mariah instinctively shielded her belly. And in that instant, no one cared about grudges, past loves, or carefully plotted revenge. All they felt was fear, raw and immediate, as the ceiling threatened to collapse. The next moment would decide everything. The chandelier crashed before anyone could react. Crystal shards rained down like jagged stars, smashing into the marble floor with deafening clatters. Screams filled the room. Guests dug under tables, clutching children and champagne glasses alike. The music stopped forever, replaced by chaos, fear, and the sharp scent of panic. Mariah pressed her hand to her rounded belly, heart hammering. She didn't even look at Clara. Instinct told her to protect what mattered most. Adrian grabbed her arm, his grip tight, grounding her. For a split second, they were the only two people who existed in the world. Clara shrieked, a sound so shrill it pierced the chaos. Her expensive heels slipped on the wet marble as she staggered backward, nearly colliding with a waiter holding a tray of crystal glasses. "Security!" she screamed. "Do something." The wedding staff were frozen, indecision painted on their faces. Some ran for cover. Some grabbed guests. The panic had consumed the room entirely. Clara's perfect plan, her flawless public humiliation, had dissolved into nothingness. And yet she couldn't let it go. Not now. She turned her fury on Mariah. "This is your fault." Clara shouted over the screaming. You had to come here, didn't you? You had to ruin everything." Mariah's eyes met hers, steady, calm, unafraid despite the disaster unfolding. She didn't reply. She couldn't waste energy on Clara. Survival came first. Adrian pulled Clara toward the emergency exit. "We need to go," he shouted. "Now!" But Clara resisted. Her face was twisted not in fear, but in rage. "No, I will not be humiliated by her, by you, by anyone. A shard of crystal sliced through the air near her head. That was enough to silence her. Adrian grabbed her wrist again, dragging her toward safety. The crowd parted automatically, instinct overriding etiquette. The bride who had commanded the room minutes ago now stumbled behind her fiancé, powerless against the chaos she had created. Mariah followed, keeping her belly protected, glancing back only once. The destruction she had not caused but now witnessed would be the turning point for everyone in that room. She didn't know Clara's mind yet. She didn't know what the bride would do next, but she knew she wouldn't cower. Outside the ballroom, the chaos continued. The crystal chandelier lay in pieces, a glittering massacre on the floor. Emergency lights flashed, painting the terrified faces of guests in harsh reds and blues. Someone screamed for first aid. Someone else shouted, "Call the police." Adrian finally stopped, catching his breath. He turned to Mariah, seeing her trembling but intact, the power and grace from her song still radiating. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice shaking. Mariah nodded. I think so." She placed a hand over her belly again. "The baby is okay." He let out a long breath, relief washing over him, but there was no time for celebration. He glanced at Clara, who had been pulled behind him, still shaking, still screaming. Her carefully constructed world was crumbling piece by piece. "You think you control everything," Mariah said softly, her voice gaining strength despite the trembling. "You think you can humiliate me, shame me, erase me, but you can't. Not anymore." Clara froze, a bead of sweat tracing down her temple. Her anger clashed with fear, a storm brewing behind her eyes. You, how dare you speak to me?" she hissed, venom in every word. "I dare," Mariah said simply, "because I am not afraid of you, and I never will be." Adrian looked between them, the confusion clear on his face. For the first time, he saw Clara not as the woman he had been falling in love with, but as someone consumed by envy and cruelty. The facade cracked, revealing the raw, bitter truth. Then Clara lunged. It wasn't a calculated attack, just pure rage. She shoved Adrian toward Mariah, trying to create chaos, to regain control. But Adrian caught her, holding her back. "Stop," he shouted, his patience exhausted. "This ends now." The bride screamed again, but her voice was lost amid the sirens outside. Police cars and ambulances had arrived. Security personnel swept the remaining guests out of the hall. Clara's plan of humiliation had turned into a spectacle of her own unraveling, witnessed by dozens of people. Every scream, every glare, every whispered question among the guests now spoke of her failure. Mariah straightened despite exhaustion and fear. Her song had been her weapon, but this was real life. She had survived Clara's cruelty. She had protected herself, and now she stood ready to face whatever came next. Adrian finally pulled Clara aside, furious. "This is insane. Do you even realize what you've done? You could have gotten people hurt. People could have died." His voice shook with rage, his hands gripping her arms. Clara's eyes burned. She had lost her control of a narrative, but she wouldn't admit it, not aloud. I was trying to make things right. I. Her voice faltered, then broke into a whimper. Mariah stepped closer, standing between them. She didn't raise her voice, didn't yell, didn't need to. Her presence alone was a statement. "You wanted to humiliate me, Clara. But look around. Look at what you've done to yourself. The world sees now who is strong and who is weak. It's not me. It's you." Clara blinked, as if struck by the truth, but pride and rage still fought for dominance. The sirens grew louder. Security officers entered, motioning for everyone to leave. Guests began filing out, murmuring, whispering about the bride's public collapse. Mariah turned to Adrian. "I should go," she said quietly. "I don't want to cause more trouble." He grabbed her hand, holding it gently but firmly. "No, you're not going anywhere. Not now. Not ever." And in that moment, Mariah realized something powerful. She had reclaimed her dignity, her voice, her story. Clara had tried to destroy her, tried to humiliate her in front of the world. But in doing so, she had only revealed her own weakness. Mariah had not only survived, she had won. The next few hours would bring police questions, insurance claims, broken furniture, and whispered gossip. But one truth would remain. Mariah, despite fear, despite pregnancy, despite cruelty, had refused to be silenced. And somewhere deep inside Clara, fear began to replace anger. She had set a trap, but she had walked into it herself. The walls of her perfect little world had begun to crumble, and for the first time, she didn't know how to rebuild them. The ballroom was now a hollow echo of what it had been. Crystal shards lay scattered across the floor, like broken promises. Chairs were overturned, decorations torn, and the music, the symbol of Clara's meticulously orchestrated event, gone forever. Outside, flashing red and blue lights from police cars reflected off the marble, painting the chaos in stark, unforgiving color. Clara stood by the entrance, clutching her silk gown, her hands shaking, not with fear, but with fury. The humiliation she had planned to Mariah had transformed into a public spectacle of her own failure. Every whispered comment from the guests she passed stabbed at her pride like a knife. She could feel it, the weight of their judgment, the unspoken truth of her own unraveling. Mariah, meanwhile, had remained calm. Despite exhaustion and fear, she stood tall, her hand resting protectively over her rounded belly. She had survived the initial chaos, reclaimed her dignity, and now faced Clara without a trace of fear. Her eyes, calm and piercing, met the bride's like twin swords poised for a duel. Adrian stepped forward, placing himself between the two women. "Clara," he said, voice trembling but firm, "you've done enough. Stop this before someone really gets hurt. It's over." Clara's jaw tightened. "Over? Do you think this is over?" Her voice was cold, brittle. "She came here to ruin my wedding. She came here to take you away from me again. And you just let her sing at your wedding? Do you have any idea what she did to me?" Adrian's hand tightened around hers. "Clara, you don't understand. Mariah didn't do this to hurt you. You did this to yourself. Your plan backfired. And now people can see it, see the real you." Clara's eyes flashed with rage. She opened her mouth to reply, but Mariah's voice cut through like a clear bell. "You wanted to humiliate me in front of everyone. You wanted to make me feel small. You thought I would break." Mariah's tone was calm, but each word carried the weight of steel. But you were wrong. I am not small. I am not weak. And I will not be humiliated. Clara recoiled slightly as if struck. The words were simple, yet they carried an undeniable truth. Every ounce of her meticulously maintained control began slipping away. The guests, now gathered outside for safety, whispered among themselves, stealing glances at the unfolding confrontation. "You don't understand," Clara hissed. I have to." Her voice cracked. "I can't let this go." Mariah took a step forward, placing herself squarely between Clara and the exit. "Let it go, Clara. You've already lost. The more you fight now, the more everyone will see who you truly are. Stop before it's too late." Adrian looked at Clara, a mixture of anger and pity in his eyes. "You've tried to control everything your whole life, but some things aren't yours to control. Love isn't yours to own, Clara. You can't humiliate people into obedience. You can't manipulate the world to suit your petty revenge." For a long moment, silence hung in the air. Clara's eyes darted between Adrian and Mariah. Her pride wrestled with a truth she could not escape. Every guest who had witnessed her plan, or the collapse of it, was now part of her judgment. She could feel the eyes on her, the whispers in her ears, the unspoken verdict that had already been passed. Finally, she spoke, voice trembling. "You think you're better than me?" Mariah's answer was steady, unshakable. "No, Clara, I just survived. I chose to rise when the world tried to crush me. You chose cruelty. That is the only difference." Clara's face twisted in anger, but beneath it, a flicker of fear. She realized too late that her attempt at revenge had only revealed her own weakness. Every guest, every whispered conversation, every phone camera that had captured the chaos bore witness. And now her perfect wedding, her flawless plan, was ruined beyond repair. Adrian took a deep breath. "Clara, stop. Please. This isn't just about pride or humiliation. Someone could get seriously hurt. Let it end here." But Clara was beyond reason. She glared at Mariah, her voice a hiss. "You think this is over? You haven't seen the last of me." Mariah shook her head slowly. "The last of you? No, Clara. This is the beginning of your reckoning. You thought you could humiliate me and rise above everyone else. But you can't. Your actions have consequences, and now you will face them. And I will not be part of your misery anymore." The tension broke with sudden, almost cinematic release. Police officers stepped forward, separating Clara from the others. Her protests were sharp but hollow. No one listened. Guests moved back, murmuring, whispering, still stunned by the spectacle they had witnessed. Mariah exhaled, a mix of relief and exhaustion flooding her. She looked at Adrian. I can't stay," she said softly. "I don't want to make things worse." Adrian shook his head. "You're not going anywhere. Not now. You've done nothing wrong. This is your victory, Mariah, and I won't let her take that from you." Clara, escorted by security officers, glared at them both. Her face was a mask of fury and disbelief. She realized fully now that she had lost not just a battle of humiliation, but the war for control. The world had witnessed her cruelty, and it had been exposed for all to see. Mariah's eyes softened as she watched Clara being led away. There was no gloating, no triumph in her gaze. Only peace. She had survived the storm, reclaimed her dignity, and demonstrated a strength Clara could never understand. And as she stepped out into the cool night air, the baby kicking gently inside her, she understood the ultimate lesson of the evening. True power doesn't come from cruelty, manipulation, or humiliation. True power comes from resilience, grace, and the courage to rise above hatred. The wedding had ended, not with the spectacle Clara had imagined, but with a moral victory that could not be stolen, bought, or destroyed. Mariah had been humiliated, yes, but not by Clara. She had been transformed, elevated by the very act meant to destroy her. And somewhere in the ruins of the ballroom, Clara realized, for the first time, that revenge was a trap. It had consumed her, revealed her weaknesses, and left her alone with nothing but shattered pride. Mariah looked back one last time at the glowing hall, the scattered crystal, and the whispers of shocked guests. She smiled softly, a quiet, serene acknowledgement of her triumph. Not in anger, not in revenge, but in survival, in dignity, and in the undeniable truth. She had risen, and Clara had fallen.